All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Government Contract Review Committee, January 2022 meeting. I'd like to first welcome a new member to Government Contract Review. We have Senator Donald Douglas. Welcome, sir. We have a quorum. Clerk, please call the roll call.
Senator Douglas. Present. Senator Southworth.
Here.
Senator Yates. Present. Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Hart.
Here.
Representative Minter.
Here.
Senator Meredith. Present. Chairman Cook.
Here. Okay, we have everyone in the room. I think that's the first time since I've been on the committee, so welcome. Should have a great meeting. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the December 15th, 2021 meeting of the committee.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by
Second.
Representative Bowling, second by Representative Mentor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Aye. Yeah.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Minter.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Cook.
Yes. Yes, sir. We have a comment from Senator Co-Chair Meredith, please.
Just like you noted and recorded for the minutes for this meeting, that the contract that we disapproved last month from Deloitte in our issue points of contention was that the work had already been performed. We were doing it after the fact. We requested a retroactive approval of that contract, and we disapproved that contract. And just would like to have it noted for the record that we were overruled by the Secretary of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Meredith. Total numbers on the agenda today, 248 in the amount of $586,994,382.90. There are two contracts with vendors not registered with the Secretary of State's office. Thus, deferrals are being requested. Do we have a motion to defer number 4 and number 46 on the PSC routine list?
Second.
Motion by Representative Hart, second by Representative Bowling. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Douglas. Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Minter.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Cook.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is the deferred list. We have number 69 from the July routine PSC green list. Do we have representatives here in the room? Or they please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. This is Kerry Harvey for the Justice Cabinet.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone with you today?
No, sir, just me.
We'll let you begin.
I think when the committee last met and had the privilege to attend, we informed you all that an RFP for a new toxicology contract, I believe at that point, had just been released. That RFP is now on the street, and we're hoping, of course, that in due course we'll enter into a new contract. We've received quite a few questions about the RFP. It's my understanding that the answers to those questions are pending approval for posting according to the normal procedure with the Finance Cabinet. And we anticipate that there will also be an extension of a couple of weeks granted for us to receive proposals, because we want to make sure that the potential vendors here are fully aware of everything they need to know to present their bid. But with that said, the things are proceeding in due course, and we anticipate that we should, in the not too distant future, have a new contract in place for toxicology services. So we would ask that the current contract continue to be deferred so that there's no break in these vital services.
Very good, sir. Appreciate your efforts on this and getting this contract, putting it back through the process again. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Senator Southworth.
Do we have a date certain when that final extension of a couple weeks is done? Is that going to be before or after our next meeting?
I believe it will be on or about February 1st, and then we will receive the proposals. We don't, of course, know how many that will be. There'll be some time required to grade those proposals and ultimately negotiate and award a contract. So I doubt that we will have a new contract in place by the time the committee meets again, but we should be getting pretty close.
Senator Yates.
Make a motion to defer.
Yes, sir. We have a motion by Senator Yates to defer. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Senator Southworth. Was that you that seconded that? All right, excellent. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
Aye.
Chairman Cook.
Yes. Motion carries. Number 69 is deferred. Thank you for being with us today, sir.
Thank the committee and ask that I be excused.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Should we be offended he didn't want to stay with us the rest of the meeting? Next order of business is consideration of the agenda, including the deferred list, corrections list, the personal service contract list, PSC amendment list, the memoranda of agreement list, the memoranda of agreement amendment list, and except for those items that are selected for further review. Do we have a motion to consider these contracts reviewed without objection?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Mentor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith, Chairman Cook.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, first items on the polled list are with the Attorney General. They are numbers 1 and 2 on the routine PSC green list. The representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. Blake Christopher with the Attorney General's Office. I have with me today Ms. Amy Burke, who is the Criminal Chief at the Attorney General's Office, and on Zoom, I believe, is Stacy Woodrum, who is the head of our Office of Administrative Services. I will turn it over to those two individuals to answer your questions today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us in person. Senator Southworth has questions.
Thank you. We had a couple of contracts we discussed a few months ago, and I wanted to get a handle on what is the difference between these, or how do they coordinate together, why we're seeing some more right now.
Senator Southworth, I know we were before you last time. I cannot remember, in all honesty, what we were discussing on the last time. I can tell you that these are from a 2019 SACI grant. Part of what we've promised under SACI is that we move towards solving cold case sexual assault / homicide cases. And as part of completing that goal, we have these contracts with 2 different forensics labs to perform the familial genetic genealogy services, which I know is what we discussed last time, but to be frank with you, I can't remember what exactly got pulled, if those were maybe under the 2017 SACI grant or if those were under something different.
Okay, let's go to an easier question then. The number 1 contract here says it's lead generation services, and number 2 is, I think, just the family tree data mining. Can you explain what we're doing between these 2 different contracts?
They're the same contract, they're just 2 different agencies that do the same thing. So what this is we've contracted in cases that are identified through our SACI grants, like a cold case. These would only be for sexual assault-based cases or homicides. These are 2 labs that perform the FGG testing. I believe both of these labs, and you were referring to the family tree DNA, I believe they both use the same source materials. So we're not talking about direct-to-consumer programs like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. There's GED Match, and there is FamilyTreeDNA.com. And these are sites where people who have received genetic testing can upload their results. So they're doing it voluntarily, uploading their own results with the knowledge, and they have to opt in to it to know that law enforcement has access to these in cases where there is an unidentified remains, or there's a sexual assault or a homicide case. So each of these labs are performing the same type of services if requested through that SACI grant on behalf of the 120 counties or law enforcement agencies within those. So I'm not sure, they're not doing different work, in other words. We've chosen to contract with 2 different agencies to do the same thing should they be needed.
Okay, final question. The terms of agreement that these people are signing when they upload their information, I'm thinking of a scenario right now, probably somebody's daughter is missing and they would like to donate their DNA to help try to circle the wagons on whatever. Is that kind of what we're talking about in the terms of agreement, spell out how this is going to get used and so forth? Do we
Right.
have that, any of the details about what the terms need to say in this contract anywhere, or is that something that we're leaving up to our vendors or this .com group to make sure people's, informed consent, constitutional rights, so forth, is all protected?
I guess ultimately it would be up to the vendor. However, I can advise that part of the procurement process was knowing what those terms were. And so this gives access to materials that exist in the public domain or which has been obtained by the consent of the people seeking to upload their genetic histories into this. Another concern was when the investigators look into this, and this is just used for leads, this is not the testing that confirms whether or not DNA or other materials left at a violent crime scene. It's not that testing, it's just to kind of to research and see if we can, in essence, find that needle in a haystack. And you're using the haystack to find that needle. But one concern was it's only when there are matches that people's what they upload is even being viewed. In other words, if I am in one of these sites and I'm not a match, it's not something that they can then, law enforcement has access to. It's only when there is a match. So it's not unfettered discretion to just go through these and look for anything. So even if, say, a young lady was missing, there would have to be remains. In other words, just a missing person would not trigger the use of this type of testing. If there were unidentified remains, that could be triggered. That's not what our office is doing, however. Our office is only involved when local law enforcement asks for help. Say there's a serial rapist in Kentucky, or we have several unsolved or cold cases where we have one DNA sample, but there's no hits in CODIS, or there's no way to find that. We would then go through and first they would analyze to see if it's even a sample that could be used in this way to help with the investigation and with leads. And there are rules that lead to that. In other words, we can't allow all the DNA to be used up this way. So there are things in place. And I will also add that Kentucky State Police and others were involved in the RFP process to sit in and listen with important concerns like people's rights and so forth. So understand that everything that's being used through these grants is all already in the public domain or has been consented to. This is not things that people, it's not the fresh swabs. These are things that are uploaded into it.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Wasn't long after I had interned here. I graduated law school and I was at the AG's office. I was on Megan's law team. So we did some of the sex offender prosecutions, and I know your work is, well, first of all, thank you. You guys are heroes to do that day in, day out. I am thrilled to see the amount of cases that can be solved now that there was no chance of before. In fact, some of those cases that we were working on then are just now being solved based on the new technology and just constant work through several different attorney generals that pass on to so many different people, assistant AGs. And so I appreciate that. One of the hurdles that we have is making sure states are sharing with each other still. And I think that that's one of the times when we have these vendors that improves that. People talk about our constitutional violations on here, and having taught con law, look at it, but I think a lot of times we remember that our restriction is on state action on here, and that the third parties are going to be doing collection because it's valuable to them. They do that and they sell that and everything else. If we don't jump in the middle of that, then there are no restrictions or oversight because there's money in that. As in any other kind of mining that they're doing, from information to data processing to everything that we're doing. So much we look at putting restrictions on our, whether we search what we're looking up and things like that, we can only restrict our state actors, but we're giving it freely to overseas. And do we want to tie our hands when other people have it? So it's that constant balancing act that we're into. And so I look at it that you're going to have to use this as a tool that we like serial rapists, murders, everything else that we're able to stop and work on, and to make sure that we do take that in so we have the ability to have oversight. I know about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was at the Metro Council, we were talking about some of this, and there was a lot of worry that maybe we should do restrictions on it, maybe we shouldn't, and then people equated to that of fingerprints, nowadays fingerprints and coming back and forth. But what is true today, it is here. And there's these third-party vendors that are going to be providing this because they have money in it. If we don't contract with them, we don't add our own restrictions, then we do not control it whatsoever. So I support the contract not only because it helps families, it solves terrible, horrendous crimes, but also because it allows us to have some type of oversight. And so I appreciate that, and hope that we'll continue to expand that. And Kentucky is we know that we've had a tremendous, terrible backlog that we still got to work on. So I appreciate you fighting that good fight.
If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion to consider these contracts reviewed.
Second.
We have a motion by Co-Chairman Meredith, second by, is that you, Representative Mentor? All right, excellent. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Split my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to vote no right now. I know I voted no last time, and I'm feeling a hair bit better because I'm hearing some good things, but I also come back to the saying that I say all the time when I'm out and about. The meetings in Frankfurt make everything sound amazing, and then once you find out on the other side it's not exactly how it sounds. I like to try to stay in the real world as much as I can, and so in order to protect people's rights to consent and so forth, I'm going to just stay with the no vote right now.
Senator Douglas. Aye. Senator Yates.
Yes, sir. Okay. That's it.
Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Briefly explain my yes vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your excellent and necessary work.
Senator Meredith. Aye. Chairman Cook.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the pulled list is with Department for Medicaid Services, number 5 on the routine PSC green list. The representatives are with us. Please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Pam Smith, the Division Director for Community Alternatives, and I have Deputy Commissioner Leslie Hoffman with me as well.
Welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. I have a question for you. And basically, I want to go back. We've had Medicaid for decades now, and we've got a contract for $2.1 million for consulting services on that. Just curious, after decades of running this, do we really need to bring in the consulting? And if so, what are you doing with it?
So the American Rescue Plan Act allowed us to have these funds to bring in consulting to supplement our staff to do research where they have more knowledge and connections federally and with other states to help us to build on what other states do well and to help us to really get things right. So it's really to augment our staff and to advise us in where we could do things better.
Not a question, but a comment. I happen to serve on the task force this summer for the 1915C waiver. And I think this you've heard me before. I really have an issue with consulting contracts. I don't think we get our value, but I think this one is desperately needed. We still have a problem with thousands of people that are on the waiting list for these services, and there's a multitude of problems associated with it. Not casting dispersion on anyone. I think everybody's trying to do the very best they can do, but we need, in essence, a total rehaul of this program, and I think this work can help us do that and move forward. Had a Zoom meeting this morning with the Senator Rocky Adams and Commissioner Lee and Kelly Rodman, and we talked about this program in great detail. And we hope to see some legislation in the future that possibly by 2030 we could totally eliminate the waiting list for these services. So I think this consulting service is vital for us to put that plan together and make sure we're spending our dollars as wisely as can. I think this is one of the few consulting agreements that we're going to see that it'll pay for itself in the long run. So with that, I will make a motion if there's no other questions.
Thank you, Co-Chairman Meredith. And if you're okay with the consulting contract, then I believe I definitely will be. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Senator Douglas. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith, Chairman Cook.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you all for being here with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item on the polled list is with the Office of the Inspector General, number 37 on the routine PSC green list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Adam Mather, Inspector General for the Cabinet.
Flying solo today?
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Senator Southworth has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had this contract a few months ago, and I asked a few questions then, and I will refresh my question, and then I will finish the rest of it that we did not get to. My first question originally was how this technology is operational, because when I saw a tablet taking my temperature, it looked like to me a facial recognition device. And I was assured that last time that there was not any personal identifying information being collected. However, it was another scenario of the meetings in Frankfurt because it sounded great. I wasn't assured because I've got a lot of concerns and I was really scattered that moment and couldn't find my notes. And I've brought them back now. My next question is this collecting personal identifiable information? And if it's not, then how in the world can the platform be integrated into the electronic medical records systems?
So I think there are a couple questions within that question. One is it only takes the personal information of the visitor or the staff member, and that's only to identify them corresponding to their questionnaire that they filled out in regards to visitation or working, making sure that they are have supplied the correct information or answered the correct questions in order to be able to visit or work. And then your other question is, it is not entered into the electronic medical record of anyone that I'm aware of. And the technology for facial recognition, I'm sure, is embedded within most tablets and probably including the phone you have, but it's not utilized through this service. It's simply uses infrared sensors to do a temperature check.
Okay, let me follow up then. The phone I have doesn't have facial recognition, I'll say that, but that's irrelevant. It says right here on the scope of work 1.00 on the contract, installation will require standard power and wired or wireless connection. Once powered on, the devices will automatically pair with care.ai backend infrastructure and will be ready for use. The sensor platform can be integrated into the electronic medical records or other applications as required by the facilities. All sensors will also be integrated into the care.ai application on smart devices to allow for easy accessibility to records and information. Can you explain to us why electronic medical records are in the contract if we're not going to be utilizing them?
I think there may be the potential where residents are going out for appointments or things like that, and upon re-entry, they may want to take their vitals and they can use that information and connect it in, but they wouldn't have access to individual visitors or staff members' electronic medical records, clearly, because the information they catalog and ask for does not give them consent to look at their medical records or anything like that, or have access to them.
Is the consent detail in the terms of the contract?
I don't know the answer, but it's a voluntary tool. The facilities, people can choose to use it, or if they're not comfortable with it, they can ask for a manual screening through the facility.
Okay, so the facility is not using this exclusively. They have another way, and that person is going to be notified and be aware of that, if that's the case. And that's all somewhere.
I think they would prefer this to be the solution, since it's automated and easy to use. But if someone is unable to use it, they will manually take in their screening information, and that's required by CMS. So they can't really get out of that.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment. I haven't heard anything yet that has assured my concerns that we either have somebody on top of this issue or that we even know the answer to what's actually going on with these devices. As it looked like to me a few months ago, we've got these tablets in place that, for all practical purposes, are scanning people's faces and taking in their information. They're connectable to electronic medical records. There's no telling what kind of all data sharing is going on, and we don't even know if there's terms of consent involved. And if the people are notified if that's optional or not. It just seems like there's a lot of questions and not very many answers. And that's why I'm still very concerned about this technology. I will remind everyone, last year there was a bill filed, and hopefully we can see some effort on it this year, about facial recognition and consent in the consumer marketplace. You go everywhere and they're taking down your data, and with the sharing and technology we have nowadays, there's a lot that can happen without you even knowing. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just as a reminder, this contract has been approved. This is a replacement contract, if you'll read that there on number 37. That being said, is there a motion to approve contract number 37? We got a motion by Senator Yates. Is there a second? Second by Co-Chairman Meredith. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth?
No.
Senator Douglas? Senator Yates? Representative Bowling?
Yes.
Representative Hart?
Yes.
Representative Mentor?
Yes.
Senator Meredith?
No.
Chairman Cook?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you for being with us today, sir. Appreciate it. Next item on the pulled list is with Facilities and Support Services. It's number 28 on the routine PSC green list. The representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Linton. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Facility Development and Efficiency. And then I've got a couple of folks from the Transportation Cabinet with me as well.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you could go into more detail about this $690,000 on number 28, please.
This is to hire an architect to design a replacement district office for District 6 in Kenton County.
Seems like a very large sum to me. Can you tell me how that relates to other contracts along this? Or it just seems like $700,000 for one building is quite a lot of money.
This is just for the design. The last district office that we built had an estimated budget around $7.5 million. And so normally we see about a 10%. That's pretty normal that we see 10% for design cost compared to the actual construction cost. So and these are not bid contracts, of course. These are negotiated contracts. They're procured on qualifications and then the fees negotiated. So this was actually a really reasonable fee for this project.
All right, thank you very much. That eye-opening for me, so appreciate that very much. So do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Representative Hart. Is there a second? Second by Representative Bowling. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith, Chairman Cook.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Next item on the pulled list is number 35 on the personal service contract amendment list. And the representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
That would be me again.
Oh, yep. Thank you. Senator Southworth has questions.
Okay.
Thank you. It says you're going to be providing additional design services for work as directed by the Commonwealth in accordance with the contract. And when I asked for a copy of the contract, somehow we don't, or at least I haven't gotten it. What we have is the cover page essentially, and I'm wondering what exactly is the work that we're talking about here?
This contract was procured back in July, or actually May was when the original contract was awarded, to do a study of the exterior of the Capitol Annex. And based on this on the study, so the original contract was for $54,500 was for the study. So based on that study, we're increasing the design contract by $98,000 to move forward with design of some of the remediation work that needs to be done on the exterior of the annex.
Can you tell us the nature of this exterior work? Is it just
Sure.
like the limestone on the building, or does it have anything to do with the road in front of it?
It has absolutely nothing to do with the road in front of it. It's all building to work on water infiltration with the building. And there's also some lighting that needs to be replaced and upgraded on the exterior of the building. But it's all either the actual building itself or the lighting on the annex grounds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion approved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved by Senator Southworth. Is there a second? Second by Senator Yates. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith, Chairman Cook.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next item on the pulled list is with the Department for Community-Based Services. It is number 5 on your routine MOA pink list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
For the Department of Community-Based Services, Division of Child Care, I'm Sarah Vanover. I'll be speaking to that contract.
Very good. Are you by yourself today, Ms. Vanover?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for being with us. Senator Southworth has questions.
Thank you. I'm looking at this and we're paying, trying to get more people, it looks like to me, the focus is getting more people into degree programs for early childhood. And we've heard other testimony, maybe last month, and other contracts where, and we're all aware, we've got about $10 an hour pay right now in a lot of these, and we're really trying to push up to 15, and that's some kind of a, reaching for the stars goal in many cases. And what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is having more people with accreditation, degrees, and so forth in this field going to help us fill that gap faster, or is it going to actually prevent us from finding the people that we need? Because one, we need them faster than that, but two, we can't afford people that have been through, multi-year extensive training if we could just limit it down to the core competencies. I mean, I'm all for really, really highly educated people, but, we got to also hit reality.
Well, there's a couple of things I want to share with you in regards to that. The framework of strengthening child care right now, not only is based on...
I'm sorry, can you, we can barely hear you. Can you try to adjust your volume or?
Yes.
There. Much
Can you
better.
hear me?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Not a problem. There's kind of different aspects that you need to think about when we're looking at solidifying the structure of childcare. We want wages to increase. Otherwise, we will not be able to compete against retail, fast food restaurants, different industries. But we also have to think about that if parents, if corporations are looking at paying higher wages, they want highly qualified staff. Now, in order to get a scholarship, that does not mean that you're getting a 4-year degree. The scholarship program that we offer has a variety of scholarships. The most common scholarship that we give throughout Kentucky is for the Child Development Associates. It's a national credential that really is a starting place in the field, and it is equivalent to 2 to 3 college classes. It gives a basis of child development information, as well as some curriculum and parent interaction that gives people a starting place. There's a lot of information, research that we have available that shows that the more training our child care providers have, the more comfortable they are doing their job, which means they're less likely to be overstressed and leave the field. And the CDA, the Child Development Associate, is the starting point for that. The scholarship also covers what is called the Director's Credential, which is a Kentucky-made credential that prepares our administrators with 4 to 5 college classes and gives them some idea of program management. In the childcare field, a lot of times we promote the best teacher to be a director. However, that director may not have any business experience. They may only have curriculum experience. So we want to be able to help train that person to know how to do budgeting and marketing and be able to run a business that is financially sound. Other programs that they can apply for include an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, and in this case, a master's degree for an administrator only. Now, in order to be able to apply for these programs, they must be working 20 hours a week in a childcare program. So while they're getting access to these programs, they are working in the field. It's an added benefit to attract people to work in the field of childcare in Kentucky, knowing that they can go to school for free while they do that and to be able to pursue their education. Once people get these degrees, it depends on what type of degree they get. But for the most part, many of the degrees, the CDA, the Director's Credential, the Associate's degree, they stay in the childcare field. Now, for some, if they reach very high degree levels, like a 4-year degree or a master's degree, they might move on to the public school system and work with public school preschool, or may go into administration. But we do have a large percentage really in Kentucky of people that stay in our field with a 4-year degree, as far as being center directors, being childcare coaches, helping to be consultative services, or even to be trainers in the field. So overall, the scholarship program would benefit many different childcare programs throughout the state.
Can I just ask one follow-up, Mr. Chairman, on that? Thank you for that explanation. I really like this CDA and that other director thing that you said. That was kind of where I would like to spend time. It looks like it's going there. I just want to know what percentage, or how do you allocate the money? Because if we could get more people in the door versus, a couple of people with master's degrees and they're going to run off to some other place. And I mean, I'm not saying that some of these other places they're running off to don't need them, but we could get 10 people working on the ground with the associates or under and only 2 masters. I'd rather have the 10, so how is that being allocated?
Well, it depends on what the applicant applies for. Our scholarship counselors go out to the childcare programs and they talk to the individuals working in the childcare programs, talk to them about increasing their education level. Many of our people that are already working in the field don't necessarily want to go back to school or go back to school for a long time. So many childcare providers decide to start off with the CDA or the Director's Credential because they are smaller steps. However, Kentucky, like many states, our goal is to create stackable credentials. So the CDA is the first half of the Director's Credential. When you complete the CDA, you could wait a few years and then apply for the Director's Credential and only have to take the second half of that coursework. The Director's Credential is part of the Associate's degree. So once you have your Director's Credential, I could go back for just a few more classes. And then the Associate's degree is about half of the 4-year degree. So the goal is to help people push up the professional development ladder, but most of them start with the CDA because it's a starting place and they think, okay, I can see if I can do this. It's 2 semesters. I have observation hours and assignments that I have to do, but let me just see if I can start with this. And so it's a really good starting point. And our system allows for people to continue to better themselves throughout their career so that they remain continuous learners, lifelong learners, instead of just saying, okay, I've done this a while, I'm done with my education, and I'll just take care of the children at this point. But to pursue continuing education and to help our child care providers better themselves throughout their career is the way that we've designed our system.
Senator Meredith has questions.
Thank you for being available to us this afternoon. But I'm a little bit
Not a problem.
I'm a little bit confused by what you said, and maybe I just didn't hear it appropriately. But people are engaged to teach that may not necessarily have a business background. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, directors, a child care director,
Okay.
like somebody can be a teacher in a child care program and get promoted to be a director without a business background. And so some centers are financially stable enough that they have a business manager. However, not all centers have that. And so a director who knows a lot about working with families and a lot about child development may need specific training on budgeting, marketing, doing their taxes, things like that. And so our director's credential is set up to help our child care providers get that training so that their business can be more financially stable.
Well, I guess my disconnect is that if we're promoting from within for people who don't have these skills, why wouldn't we hire someone who has those skills to begin with?
Well, I mean, these are small businesses. We have 2,000 small businesses in the child care system throughout the state. And they do have the freedom to make some individual choices on who they hire. A lot of companies have strong company loyalty. A lot of families feel comfortable with a teacher that has been in the program for a long time. And so the owner of that program may choose to promote an internal staff. Our job as the Division of Child Care to support these programs is to make sure that these trainings and credentials are available to support the individuals as they continue on their own professional development track.
I get that, and I certainly see the value of the program, but I would hope the more appropriate answer would be is those people just aren't out there. And I certainly don't have that assurance at this point, and so that's the point of my concern, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Thank you. Senator Douglas has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe there was something you answered that I didn't hear. I know Senator Southworth asked a question, but so I'm gonna say it a little bit different. What percentage of people do you see stay in the program at the level that they're being trained, which is where we need them?
Right. I can get you concrete numbers. I don't have a percentage breakdown of who stays. I will say that child care is a high turnover field right now, and the predominant reason for that is low wages. We have providers in Kentucky that have been in their centers for 20 to 25 years, and we also have providers that after their first year, they move on to something else because the work is hard and the wages have been low. And so we want to find these extra benefits to bring them in and keep them there longer. Again, if you're pursuing a degree that's contingent upon you working at least 20 hours a week in a child care center, you're more likely to stay in that child care center during the path of the degree. I will say that with some of the funds we've been giving out through the American Rescue Plan dollars, we're surveying child care programs. We have data we have to collect for the federal government every month, but we've also included some of our own questions in there. For programs that are increasing their wages, we're also asking how many staff members are turning over every month. So we're trying to collect new data to see how increased wages affect staff turnover, as well as some other data points that we're trying to figure out about how higher quality program increases the likelihood that staff want to stay there. I will say that with our CDA programs, higher accredited programs like 4 and 5 All-Star programs, which is our Kentucky credentialing system, or nationally accredited programs that are accredited through the National Association of the Education for Young Children or things like that, they have to have a certain percentage of staff members that have at least a CDA or higher. And so many programs look for those with a CDA instead of higher degrees because they anticipate that they would stay there longer than somebody who's going to pursue a higher degree and move on to another field. Also, the CDA is less financially restrictive for many people in the past. If they've had to pay for it out of pocket without doing a scholarship, the CDA is more affordable. It's between the classwork that they have to take, 120 hours of classwork, 200 hours of observation, their portfolio, and then their test and final observation. They spend about $1,000 on fees plus a lot of time and effort in the coursework. But it's not the same as getting a 4-year degree, which is much more extensive as far as the time and effort. Many programs will encourage their staff members to pursue that CDA and do some type of incentive for them to complete that. And so that does encourage, with those staff incentives, it does encourage staff members to stay longer. And once they're more trained, they feel more equipped. One of the things that we see often is that staff members who don't have a background in child development and may be overwhelmed by children who have special needs, things like that, they're more likely to leave because they feel poorly equipped for the job. And degrees like the CDA, like the director's credential, like the associates, help our providers to feel more equipped to do their job, and then they are more likely to stay in their job.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I ask a second question? We're talking about CDA and we're talking about administrators and we're talking about average tuition. Could you give me an average tuition succinctly, please?
An average tuition on what degree?
For the CDA and for the administrator.
Like I said, the CDA is approximately $1,000. It's a little bit different with the council. There is a national body that we have to pay. The Council for Professional Recognition is located in Washington, D.C. The application process must go through them, and they charge it a little bit higher if you do online things versus paper things. There's some variation there. The coursework may be done anywhere. So a private organization can do the coursework and then you have to apply. So it is approximately $1,000 based on what the local coursework costs. The director's credential is equivalent to 4 or 5 college classes, depending on how the universities group content within their classes. Our KCTCS system has the director's credential down to 4 college classes that are 3 hours each. And so that coursework would be approximate with KCTCS's tuition classes for 12 hours of study.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We discussed on the floor earlier about Kentucky's ranking for abused, neglected children, always being 1, 2, or 3, I think in the past 15 years top. One thing that we ask for these teachers is to be educated on other things as far as what to look for, what signs, what not. I think everyone in this committee will agree that we're competing right now. Our children, we're educating our children and competing with states around us, and we are falling behind year after year. There's been study after study saying that early childhood development makes all the difference. We know that other states have universal pre-K. We don't have that. We're pushing for it. Hopefully we'll have it after this year. But we've got to have things in place. Otherwise, all we do is complain, and this body doesn't do anything to make it better. I do have family who are involved, been special needs teachers, a couple of them have gone through coursework. There's 2 points for this. One, as an educated teacher, whether you don't want just a glorified babysitter, you want a teacher, early education, is a happier teacher and a better equipped teacher, but also produces better outcomes, shows over and over and over. This small investment is a multiplier as it puts into the child. We know that we have real impacts early on. I've been a youth mentor for many years, and a lot of times it's the teenage children that I try to have an impact on, but I know that the higher gratitude, the higher impact will be there those early development years. And that's what the studies show us. And we wish that we could have got to them earlier, but we missed that over and over again. So we want these teachers to be educated. It's a priority for us, and we have a scholarship in place for it. I like that. I also know that we're a little sneaky with it because we put certain degrees that are only work here in Kentucky. So it's hard to pick it up and go because they're not really looked at everywhere. And I'm okay with that too, because we're putting our tax dollars, putting our money in place to try to keep that. We also know if we don't do it, they do what? They still are good workers from other places. They're taken because they will scholarship and educate them other places. And we know there's a huge loss. And I really clicked in only to Senator Meredith, you had said a question, but he answered it himself, is because we don't have them. And you were on it, and I think you were being rhetorical, but that's absolutely right. You have to get someone who loves children, who love what they do, who cares, because that's the first one. And then if you educate them in a way they can be successful in a business, well, not only will this small business work, but it works because it works for the kids and for Kentucky and makes things better. So I'm all for these type of programs. That's one of my big pushes. When I first decided to run for office, it was mostly to look at it and go, what about these babies? What about this pre-K? What about this extension? So thank you for your work here, and I'll be a yes.
I will say that although some of our Kentucky credentials, the director's credential is a Kentucky credential. However, we do allow you to use out-of-state college credit to receive that director's credential. So during the application process for the director's credential, if the individual can show that they took college coursework in another state that is similar to what we require in Kentucky, then they qualify for that credential as well. The CDA is a national credential, and it will be used in any state with child care providers. And it is a really standard level of education as far as where to start. And of course, our associate's degree programs and bachelor degree programs are equivalent to many of the states as far as the curriculum they are concerned. So although we're basing tuition on Kentucky entities and Kentucky state universities, that's for a couple of reasons, is because we do have credentials here that we are trying to promote. However, it's also because our state universities are less expensive, and many of our private universities in Kentucky do not have degrees in early childhood education. And so we are looking at the schools that have those, ways to promote them. And then if we have someone come in from out of state that has education from another state, how do we make that equivalent to the degree and make sure that they have those credentials if they need them in order to get a job here?
Follow up from Co-Chairman Meredith.
I'm sorry to have to share war stories with you, but I was in hospital administration for 40 years, and this sounds eerily similar to our attempts to try to get healthcare providers to go to rural communities. And somebody came with the bright idea, well, okay, we'll pay for their education. They come back and practice in a rural community for a couple of years, and they'll love the learning community, and then they'll stay, they'll solve the problem. It hasn't. Never has, because it's not about the money, it's about the money. And I think you can do this, but you're still going to have the issue that they don't make enough money. And we're training these people to go someplace else. It's not going to address the fundamental issue that pay is too low. If pay is where it needs to be, I think this would incentivize people to probably advance themselves yet, with the expectation they get some kind of career ladder, but it's not there yet. So I don't see a return on investment on this. I'd rather see the money go for increasing pay for these people. But
we'll say that we do currently have two streams of funding that are coming from the federal government in order to support the state through COVID. And the largest portion of that was designated to go to the centers to help them recover and to increase wages. And that is where all of that funding has gone. Now, we were charged with different goals with the second stream of funding. It is a smaller stream of funding. It was to go to families and to support them, which we have increased funds through our subsidy program quite a bit. We were also charged with developing teacher skills so that they will be able to receive higher wages. I agree with you that the wages are too low. And I also think that for wages to go up, we want to partner that with workforce development. We want our teachers in the child care program to be seen as teachers, not babysitters. We want them to be seen as professionals and experts. And in order to do that, we want to provide the highest level of education for them. And as they are educated, more respected in the community, we want wages to go up as well, so that they will stay in the community. It's a balancing act where both things need to be coordinated together.
I agree with you 1,000%. And from what you've told me from your testimony now, are you saying this particular $4 million comes from ARPA money that's designated solely for this purpose?
It is ARPA money that is designated with 5 different objectives, including the development of our teachers and helping them pursue higher levels of education and keeping them in the workforce.
I think in theory it sounds like a wonderful program. I'm still concerned about practical application, but I'd hate to kill the opportunity. But
I will say that our scholarship program has been in effect since Patton implemented All Stars for Kids Now back in 1998. And if you see how the scholarship program has worked in the long term, the quality of our child care program since 1998 has improved immensely. It is very different, and we have given out many, many scholarships. Now, with this particular amount of money we've gotten from American Rescue Plan money, we have just increased the volume because we have the ability to do that for a short period of time. But the scholarship program has long-term achievements. It's one of the things that when we do our tobacco dollar presentation every year, we list the number of scholarships and show how it has benefited the child care field, how many scholarships we've given out, and what types of scholarships. So this is a long-term project that has just gotten infused with some additional dollars. But in the long term, particularly over the past 20 years, we've seen the growth of the child care field with the scholarships and additional training that we have provided.
Well, I appreciate your passion about this. I truly do. It's obvious that this is something that's very important to you, been a part of your career, and I certainly respect that. And I'm going to defer to you because you're the professional in this field. I will admit I'm still a little bit skeptical, but again, I admire your passion and I appreciate your testimony, and I hope it works the way you envision it does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a follow-up from Senator Southworth.
Yes, thank you. I think I mentioned maybe last month the same thing our co-chairman's concerned about, and that is, if we get these people to be able to provide a higher level of service to these children, the same people are still responsible for paying the fees, and I'm wondering how parents are going to be able to afford the wages that actually need to happen to make this whole ecosystem work. But my question in finality here is this $1,000 tuition that we're talking about, the CDA, and then there were other costs for the other programs. Is that the actual cost after the scholarship, or is that the cost before, and the scholarship is paying the $1,000, and therefore 4,000 people on this contract are going to get CDA credentialed?
The scholarship will pay the full cost of the training, the application, and everything for the child care providers, because many of them do not have the additional funds based on their salary to pursue the education on their own. So the scholarship is put in place to assist them with their training while they are working and help them pursue the higher level of education with fees and costs that they might not have available on their own salary.
Well, amen. I was going to say, I want to make sure, because we're making $10 an hour, we're not going to be able to find $1,000 to pay for tuition. So that's perfect. Just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
Senator Douglas has a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one final question, and be brief if you could. We're paying to train adults. What outcome measures are we using for our children? Because you sort of alluded to that just a little bit earlier. At least you got in that area. Could you help me there?
What outcomes are we expecting to see from the children when the adults have higher levels of training?
What outcome measures are we using? Are we measuring how our children are doing when we have people who are teaching them? I want to know if we're moving our children forward. I know we have the program that is here to help educate our child care providers, but ultimately what we're looking for is improving the education of our children.
Assessment in the child care programs is still optional. However, the higher level of assessment the programs use, the higher level all-star rating they receive within the state. So our 3, 4, 5-star programs typically use developmental assessments and are able to assess outcomes and see, as the children progress towards kindergarten, how they are meeting developmental milestones and how they are meeting curriculum goals. Also, we follow up as we transition from the child care program to the public school system. We do have a kindergarten screening tool that is administered to every child before they begin kindergarten. And we're able to see how those children transitioning in do on the entry-level screener. And the public school system does collect if the children went to a child care program, prior to doing that screener.
Second.
Second by Representative Boyd. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Douglas. Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Cook.
Motion carries. Ma'am, if okay, your passion and your knowledge on this issue is sorry. Motion carries. My microphone wasn't on. Motion carries. And ma'am, your knowledge and passion for this issue is extremely impressive. Just want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing all the knowledge that you shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the pulled list is with the Department of Education. It's numbers 56 through 60 on the routine MOA pink list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. My name is Karen Worth. I'm with the Division of Budgets and Financial Management at KDE. And for the first four contracts, I have with me Dr. Thomas Woods Tucker. He is our Deputy Commissioner and Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, and he's joined us to talk about the content of the MOA.
Okay, very good. We're going to handle 56 through 59 first. And I'm going to let Co-Chairman Meredith start with questions.
Doctor, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm sorry you've had to sit through all these contracts, and we appreciate your patience and indulgence, and hope maybe it's been a learning experience for you as well. It always is for the rest of us. And my question is a kind of continuation of a discussion we had last month about this subject. We approved 4 contracts last month for these positions, and now we're asked to approve 4 more. And I don't know if you were approved of that testimony or not, but I had some real concerns about it. But it looks like we're committing roughly $1 million to this initiative. Will we see any more contracts like this, or is this the extent of it?
Well, Co-Chairman, first of all, it's a pleasure being here, and it's also a pleasure coming here to learn, and you all seem like family. I've been here so often, so you come like family to me. And I do appreciate those questions. You will more than likely see other contracts related to helping to provide greater opportunities, closing opportunity gaps for all students, regardless of their demographics, here in the Commonwealth. We have 650,000 public school kids here and private school kids as well. And so you'll see similar contracts, a few more contracts, maybe not exactly like this, but whenever we have an opportunity and we have federal dollars and hoping to build the capacity with our partners to continue this. So you may, but this will be the last of the contracts working directly with our 8 education cooperatives, plus we'll have some assistance at the Kentucky Department of Education. So thanks for that question.
Well, if it's fair to call this a program, I'm not sure how else to categorize it. It's a program. What's the total anticipated budget for this initiative?
Well, it's not really a program. This is an opportunity to build capacity here for all of our students here in the Commonwealth, and also continue the great momentum that you all are establishing here. We heard from the governor yesterday, many of the Fortune 100 companies are coming here, and companies, and I've had the pleasure of working in 3-4 other states, and they don't come to a state that's not forward-thinking, that's not building a strong educational system.
Well, again, I struggle with the word program. I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but obviously someone has identified an issue, a problem, and somebody has said, okay, here's how we're going to address it. So is this a formal initiative to try to address a problem, an issue?
Again, this is a concerted effort. I think Senator Yates talked about it last time in his experiences here with schools. This is a concerted full court effort, a full court press effort to do something. I mean, we've talked a lot about closing the achievement gap and opportunity gaps. And as Senator Yates talked about, it's time to do something. And what we're doing here are research-based strategies to close these gaps. I mean, we've admired the problem too long.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but again, I view this as a program because one of the ways to address that gap is improve the reading skills of all of our children. And back in December, and this is one of the reasons this got my attention, the Department of Education decided they were going to take a big majority of the funds that designated for Reading to Achieve to start a program for professional development to teach teachers how to teach reading. And my objection is that Reading to Achieve is quite prominent in my rural district. It's vital to the improving the reading skills of our children, but we're willing to take those funds and reallocate them to another program. So that comes at a cost. It's the same with this. If we're so desperate for funding, and particularly for somebody as fundamental as reading is, then how much money are we going to spend on this? And I won't call it a program, I'll call it an initiative. How much money are we going to spend on this initiative to do what? And to borrow Senator Douglas' phrase earlier, is where's the measurement on this? What's the anticipated outcome of this initiative, program, whatever we want to call it? How are we going to measure the success of this?
Well, let me address your first question, and you're all probably going to have me back here at some point in time because I also have the pleasure of helping to supervise and collaborate in the Office of Teaching and Learning, where this Reading to Achieve grant is, and so you'll probably see me or my chief academic officer here in the near future. But I don't want to confound or conflate that with why we're here right now. The ultimate outcome is to ensure that more of our students, when we see more of our students from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses and what have you, regardless of what zip code they're in, whether they're from a rural area or suburban area or urban area, more and more of our kids are achieving. That we're also addressing the mental health needs. I know that's a passion for each of you. A big part of what these diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinators would be to help lead efforts at our co-ops and in our districts to address the mental health needs not only of our students, but also of our staff.
Then tell me how this, I hate to use the word program because obviously you don't call it that, but whatever this is, tell me how it works. We've got 8 regional directors.
And plus one at KDE to help our students primarily who have IEPs.
Then how does it work?
They will work alongside our regional co-op staff and our school districts in creating professional development and strategies to help close reading gaps, to help close numeracy gaps in math, to have some real
Excuse me, but these particular positions will do that.
They will help do that. They will help to do that. And that's our problem. Again, we continue to admire these problems, but we don't have professionals and we don't have strategies in place to close them. And there are research strategies. There are districts right here in Frankfort. There are districts across the Commonwealth that are closing these gaps. And we need to take the best strategies. So they're coming together as what we call a community of practice. In education and many other professions, we never come together and share best practices and best ideas. Now, for the first time, we have folks across the Commonwealth who are coming together to share best practices and strategies to close these gaps. It's sad to say, if anyone is saying it, that school districts in Kentucky or all school districts in Kentucky or across America are failing. That's not true. Many of our school districts right here are doing a great job. We don't do a great job of sharing best practices and strategies.
Well, what I hear, in terms of those best practices, is example using reading specifically. I've talked to public school districts within my district and asked them about this, and reading particularly, they said that the best thing that we could do is re-energize, refund the mentoring program. Because again, I'm putting this in very Reader's Digest kind of concise terms. It concerns me that our colleges and universities are not teaching teachers how to read. And I mentioned that to a primary school curriculum coordinator. She says that's not the issue as much as when graduates come out of those programs and come to schools, they need mentors to work with them for 3 or 4 years, and we're not funding those mentoring positions. So why wouldn't this money be better used for that purpose rather than create what I consider a mid-level bureaucracy that's we're going to get together, we're going to sing Kumbaya, and we're going to study this, and we're going to send out programs, and we don't move the needle at all.
Well, they're going to work together, and this is the first time we've had people work together. And again, I'm sure you all have me back here, or someone from KDE back here, to talk about the literacy program. We're more than happy to do that. And I will say this as a point of emphasis in working with professors and teachers of literacy. There are some strong teacher education programs right here in Kentucky that are helping teachers and pre-service teachers go out into the fields and teach students to become literate, not only having a love for reading, but loving to read as well. And again, we can talk about that when you all call me back. But I hope that you all don't miss the point I'm trying to make here. This would be the first time we've come together in a systematic way, to talk about these issues and come forth with strategies and exemplars that are working.
Well, I like to quote that great philosopher Elvis Presley, who said, a little less conversation, a little bit more action. I think that's what we need for education, and I think that's what's missing from it. Again, my concern is we're creating another mid-level bureaucracy that's not going to hit the target at all. But I'll ask a very basic question, then I'll shut up, is once we spend this money, regardless of how much it is, how will we measure success?
We are measuring the growth in student academic outcomes. We're going to measure the growth in student outcomes, student achievement, and also student well-being. Because we know if students don't feel safe at school, and again, with this pandemic we've been dealing with here, who thought this would be going into 3 years soon? That students are not feeling great. Teachers are not feeling great. There are issues with mental health. And so we want to make sure, as I said, part of their jobs would be to address those issues as well, not to teach a certain framework or what framework is better. That's not it. It's to listen and see what specific issues school districts are having and with their kids and coming up with a plan for them. And so measuring whether students feel better about themselves and about school this year compared to the previous year.
So how will we do that? Will we do a student survey every year on attitudes? And
yes, absolutely.
Same with teachers?
Yes, surveys. We already have the surveys in place. Again, we simply have not brought forth these surveys or pulled out certain things or certain lessons to be learned from the surveys. But yes, to answer your question, Co-Chair, sir, we will be looking at surveys and sending out surveys to measure student growth and their affinity.
You heard me say earlier that my background is healthcare.
Yes, sir.
And back during the 70s, 80s, back when Senator Douglas was still a small child before he went to medical school, we had the argument about we need to measure quality care. And the physicians at that time who drove the healthcare delivery system argued that you can't measure quality. Well, you really can. It's kind of an ambiguous term, but you can measure things that represent quality. And that's what I say with this particular situation. So my comfort level will be more, I'd like to know specifically what we're going to measure and what the targets are.
Oh, absolutely. As I said earlier, student well-being, students' perception of schooling.
I get that, but those are soft targets, and I want to know if students' perceptions are what the baseline is, then what's the target?
Yes, and also those students who've not been successful in what we call in the educational realm, who've been marginalized. Again, there's no political context to it. It's a term that we use. Are those students having a better experience? Are they better connected to the classroom? Are they better connected to the schools?
You know, I'm very pleased. I'll finish with this, Mr. Chair, but very pleased to have Senator Douglas join our caucus. And this man is a true American success story. And I think if educators spent time talking to him, how he was able to achieve what he was able to achieve and use as a model for the rest of our students, and we would address all these issues and wouldn't have to be spending this kind of money. But that's just my personal opinion, Mr. Chair. So ready to move on.
Thank you. Senator Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's one of the big advantages of being in this distinguished body, is that I'm surrounded by exceptional people people who are exceptionally hardworking, exceptionally bright, exceptionally talented. One thing in Kentucky we have to look out for is some of those people who may fall between the cracks, who may not share in some of that intellect or the proper upbringing, or even struggle with work ethic and things early on. And we know that those people who, if we do not find a way to reach them early on, not only have we done them a disservice, but we've done that to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, because it costs us a lot more in the long run. So our focus is, while we applaud our colleagues who are exceptional, we also look out for our constituents who may not be able to share in some of those same qualities or benefits early on. My grandfather, I remember when I was a kid, we were talking about, what about this money? Would it be better spent here? I bought a Ford Probe from an auction. I was 18 years old, and I was super excited about it until I came out and realized it was falling apart. I got it for $2,800, and I thought I just got a steal on it, and then I realized, well, I was going to change the brakes. I could do that. Then there was a fuel pump that was going out. And it was one thing after another. And I remember telling him, I was like, well, shouldn't we spend money on this? Should we spend money? And he laughed at me. He said, if you don't spend money on all of it, the car don't drive.
Right.
And so that car sat for about 8 months while I cut grass till I got enough money to pay for everything. This car has not drove in Kentucky. It's not gotten better. We continue to do the same thing year after year, decade after decade, and Kentucky remains stagnant. And insanity, it is insane to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So one of the good things about Kentucky is that we're so far behind, we get to look about other people, what they've been doing the past decade, and look at best practices. We always stay far behind as far as and we did this in Louisville, Kentucky too. When I would travel, we go to Austin, other places, see what they're doing. We know we can look at other states, what they did to work to become about best practices to be able to fill out some of the different gaps. Now, our problems are different in every state, and every community is different, and that's why I like that you have this regional approach, because what I do want to see is these are 3-year programs. I want to compare the regions. I want to see how they're against each other, what's worked and what hadn't worked, and come to it. And I also understand we have a moving target. When I did the youth mentor stuff, we play different things, but one group of kids, it'd be 100 kids it would work right with. The next year it wouldn't, because they're always different. It's constantly moving. But the one thing that we have to do in the state of Kentucky is make sure that we're holding people accountable. You don't want ever out there playing on the field without a coach. So you have to have a director where there's some level of accountability. And I hope that in the event that you have a region that's not living up to what other regions are doing, that person loses their job. They're not doing that because ultimately the kids are the ones that suffer. But I'm not an expert in this at all. I've done my fair share of volunteering work, and I've had lawsuits against school districts that didn't perform the IEP correctly, that didn't do things right, and I know what mess up looks like. But I do understand that bringing about the best expert to instruct us to bring it in for Kentucky and hold those accountable only means that we improve. And I'm in support of that. And I think that in the event we don't invest in it, just like the other education, then we're really we're insane. We'll continue to do the same thing over and over again. But my colleague, he's exactly right. You don't want to take from one program to this other one. For the first, we have one-time funds that'll be in it for a couple of years. We have an economy that's doing well. We're going to have to look at the percentage of our budget and say, what percentage of our budget are the education of our children worth? Of our total budget. What percentage of our total budget should be dedicated to the future of the Commonwealth of Kentucky? I appreciate your help.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a couple of different questions. One, at the KDE level, when we talked a couple months ago, we were talking about changing the office, I think, that oversaw the guidance counselors, and office is kind of replacing them. But I'm trying to figure out the work that the guidance counselors do now. Where is that moving to, and how does that filter through the regional levels?
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Southworth, for that question, so I can really try to do a better job of clarifying it. The former coordinator of counseling services has now taken the position of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at KDE. And we've now hired someone to backfill his position as Coordinator of School Counseling. And that position primarily provides support to all of our school districts here in Kentucky around counseling issues. In fact, Dr. Sweeney and his successor, and on occasion I would join them. In fact, we have a couple school districts, I won't mention them, where we're going to provide direct support, direct PD in addressing issues anywhere from school climate to issues related to diversity, issues related to racism and what have you. But also our biggest effort right now, and we do need additional support, and that's really helping our school districts with their students and staff social and mental health issues. So that will be a big part of what we'll be doing going forward. And also providing support for our school districts in Western Kentucky that just simply decimated by the tornado. So those things don't stop. In fact, in Western Kentucky, they've been amplified.
Okay, so the guidance counselors, my understanding right now is that our school guidance counselors pretty much operate everything short of the school nurse to the teddy bear.
Yeah.
So and the secretary answering the phone. So
In some cases, yes.
is this going to be kind of are we going to end up filtering into having a school level position, or is this going to all stay at the regional level?
No, these particular diversity, equity, inclusion positions will stay at the regional level, providing support for schools at the school district level that ask for it, that need it. The position for the comprehensive school counseling position will continue to stay at KDE and support our school counselors across the Commonwealth.
Okay, and now I'm looking at the price tag here, and we're talking about December 10th through June 30th, so approximately $200,000 for a year for the coordinator. So this says, though, for 3 years, but the effective date for the contract is only for 6 months. So are we going to see a renewal here? And these people are making north of $150,000 by the time we add pension and health benefits, or how's that all calculate?
Karen is, Ms. Worth is our numbers person, but I think the final number is 100,000. You see a partial salary because these folks haven't started the job. All of them have not started working yet. So I think that explains that part. But no, these jobs are $100,000 a year, and it includes the health benefits and so forth. Again, I'll let Karen ensure that I'm speaking.
Dr. Tucker, that's correct. It's $100,000 each of the 3 years, and that does include all the fringe benefits and health insurance and all. And the contract will be for $100,000 if approved. However, we will only pay the amount of work that the coordinator is actually, doing work under the contract. So the $100,000 will not pay out at the end of the year.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I've got another follow-up if I could finish here.
Sure.
So we were talking about the social emotional learning surveys earlier. I just wanted to clarify. Is this office or these regional groups, are they going to make a normal, every school thou shalt do this survey so that every school has to do the same survey? Because my understanding, and so far talking to different coordinators in different schools, they're all kind of picking a different company to use. And I've looked at, online, there's Panorama and others.
Yes.
They've got all these acronyms, these different companies that have these surveys, and then you can customize it for your school. So are we this group basically going to be looking at all those surveys to try to compare all the answers to figure out how to put them into one mass spreadsheet, or are we just going to say this is the survey you're using and no, it's not going to be custom?
No, it's going to be the first part that you mentioned. They'll look at the surveys again, our folks are not going to mandate that you shall do this, you must do this X, Y, and Z. We do have what's called an equity playbook that we're coming up with, and it's strictly voluntary. If school districts want to have these research-based strategies to close these gaps that Senator Meredith mentioned, that's fine. But the surveys, the schools have to do the surveys anyway, so our regional DEI coordinators will be working with the school districts and again, some of these folks are our school counselors. They have a school counseling background. And many of our school counselors, as you aptly mentioned, Senator Southworth, they are doing multiple jobs. I mean, the School Counseling Association said it should be only a 1 to 250 ratio. Some of our outstanding counselors are being, especially during this tough time, are responsible for the care of 400 students. That's not the case in every district, but in some districts there are. They're the coordinator of testing. You know, they're covering classes. They're doing everything to help their schools be successful. But that's one of the reasons why this position is so important, and the positions that we ask for are so important, is to give our local school districts that need the support, that want the support, to give them a break. So no, we're not going to force them survey onto them. They'll look at the existing surveys, and all these surveys have a theme, and it really has to do with the student, and in some cases with staff surveys, their affinity for the school. Is the culture, is the environment conducive for learning? And so they'll look at these surveys and draw conclusions from those surveys.
Well, appreciate that. Just want to refresh our memories since we're talking about something for 3 years, but we're only approving it right now through June 30th. So the big question that we consistently have with these limited federal funds that are one-time dollars is how we're going to keep this going once we start. And then finally, the thing that I feel like is missing in these SEL surveys, I like to find out how people are feeling, but also opposite of feelings, we need to push the word resilience, because there is zero resilience. In fact, we're in the negatives at this point, and I see zero efforts toward that. And we have people come in these committee hearings trying to recruit police officers, trying to recruit, medical workers and so forth. And these kids, it's like, man, I feel bad, so I don't want to go do that training. And it's just the culture that we've created in let's make sure everybody feels okay has actually hurt a number of our most needed positions in the society. And so I'm trying to figure out, I know there's got to be a balance, because I care about people figuring out how to get past their issues. But as I go back in a few years, the people that have figured out how to get past their issues philosophically, that's fantastic. Some people just say, well, I'm just going to have to push through. I don't have time to deal with all that. We're just going to have to push through, and you have to do what you have to do, and you grow from it, and you grow up fast sometimes. And there's some really bad situations out there. I think we spin all of our wheels trying to solve them all instead of figuring out how do we take what we have and move forward. So that's where I would leave it right there.
Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be brief. We're talking about trying to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know some people think that I took care of benefits. I had certain benefits early on. There's not a whole lot of benefits with 16 kids in a one-bedroom log cabin. There's just not a lot of benefits. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of paying attention. And there's a lot of patience waiting for things to happen. Now we're talking about spending tax dollars here. These are tax dollars. Somebody's made these dollars. They didn't just kind of come out there and appear. My wife taught for 38 years, so I love my teachers. I love the school system, and I have spent a lot of time in the school system. My concern is how we're continually, and I cringe when people tell me we're not spending enough money on education. It's crazy. It's crazy. I know I'm throwing a wet blanket over a nice warm fire, but we are. We're spending money. We can always spend more. My concern is that we're not addressing the environmental factors that are holding our kids back. We don't want to talk about that. We talk as if money is going to make all the difference. And we have all the environmental factors. We have family factors. We have parental factors. I would absolutely love to have someone come in here and ask me for money and say, but we're also going to be doing this with the parents. We're also going to be doing this. We're also going to be doing this. But I don't hear that. And what I would ask of you, where do we get that input from paying coordinators to in regional educational cooperatives to teach diversity, education, and inclusion. Because we're putting the money out there, and then the kids at the end of the day are going back to their same homes in their same environments. And we're not educating or improving those homes or those environments. I'm just throwing that out as a concern that I have for someone who did not share a bunch of benefits early on. I've been there. I get it. I want our kids to move forward, but we've got to give them the tools. We've got to give them the substructure to be able to move forward. We've got to give them role models. We've got to give them something to look forward to, someone to talk to, someone to work with, who is going to tell them, you can do this. You can do whatever you want to do. Not tell them the differences that they have between this person, that person, and the other person. We all breathe. We all go to the bathroom. We all sleep. We've got to start working together as a team, where no matter how much money we put in it, it's not going to make any difference. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Co-Chairman Meredith has a follow-up.
Thank you, I promise. Just a very brief question. What's the job requirements for these positions? What are we looking for? What kind of person will fill these positions?
Yeah.
We obviously want someone who cares about students, who cares about staff, folks who care about education, folks who care about life experiences. One of the statements I made, and to really address Senator Douglas's question, I said we spend a whole lot of time admiring problems, talking about the difficulties of trying to reach students and why we can't reach them. And I totally agree with you, and hopefully you and I can sit down and I can share with you all about my background. But right here today, we've talked about these difficulties. For the first time in Kentucky, we can systemically use research-based strategies beyond talk, beyond rhetoric. Because there are strategies and there are places, as I said earlier, that are doing exceptional work, and students are achieving in spite of. And so we want to take these strategies, and again, I talked about our equity playbook that's coming up. We want to take these research-based strategies that have been proven in other places and ensure that in each of our regions, our teachers, where it matters the most, next to our parents, our teachers have the biggest impact on student success and well-being. Because, Senator Douglas, we can't control what happens at home. But what we can do, we can control what happens at school when the kids are with us 6 to 8 hours. One of those strategies might be in one of our co-ops would be to engage parents and family. We've talked about family and parental engagement. So one co-op or one school district may need professional assistance in terms of how do we better engage parents so that they can assist their kids. So that gets to parents being involved. And another strategy may be looking at what can we do to address what's causing disproportionality, what's causing a certain group of students to be suspended and expelled. We can look at the data all day long. We can look and ask our questions, why are African American males being suspended twice as much as other groups? It happens, the data is there. But what we haven't done, we have not put strategies in place, and we have not looked at the data. One of the things I certainly would like to talk with you all about at some point in time, every school district in Kentucky now has a dashboard, an equity dashboard, that looks at every student. And what's different now versus assessment data that we spend a lot of time on is that we have a warning bell in this dashboard letting school districts know that some disproportionality is happening. We have fewer kids in AP courses or IB courses are being suspended or not. We can do something about it now. This is the first time a state has this tool in their hands. And so, to finish answering your question, 3 things. One, these people here gotta love kids, gotta love what they do. They need to have a passion about student improvement to be able to look at this data and come up with strategies to address these gaps.
With all due respect to you, I'm going to tell you why this is going to fail. I think it was 3 sessions ago, we heard in health and welfare from 3 physicians from the University of Kentucky talking about teenage suicide. So we're all aware it's alarming, it's tragic how much it's increased over the last decade. And I asked a very innocent question. It wasn't misleading. It wasn't a leading question at all. I asked one of the doctors, I said, with all this data you have available to you, is there any one particular group of young people that has a higher probability of suicide than others? Something you can slice and dice it. Can you do it by races? Can you do it by income levels? Can you do it by anything? And he said, no, it's pretty much standard across the board. But then he said, except there's a small percentage of young people that have a lower probability. And so why is that? And he really struggled for the answer. And finally he said, it's that group of young people who have some degree of religiosity. What he really said was those kids who have a belief in a higher being and a God. And what's missing from all this discussion is, we want kids to be physically fit, we want them to be mentally fit, but we do nothing about their spiritual fitness. And if you don't believe in something, you believe in nothing. And I think that's what we've raised a whole generation of doing, is they got no belief in anything other than what's here and now. And I'm not preaching any particular religion, but unless we allow students truly to do some critical thinking about the wholeness of all this, we're going to fail. But we can't talk about these things. All the problems we are dealing with here and the millions and trillions of dollars we're going to spend can be resolved 2 ways. One, you tell kids, you teach them every day, love one another. Secondly, do unto others, you have them do unto you. They hear that, they see it in practice, it resolves itself. But we can't talk about that because it's religion. That's why we will fail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve contract numbers 56 through 59? Motion by Senator Yates. Is there a second? Second by Representative Mentor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
No.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
No.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
Last month we had these contracts. I voted no. They were passed anyway. I'm going to vote yes this time because I don't want to be accused of being an impediment for this project going forward. But also I want to do it to show that I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference unless we focus on the things that I'm talking about. So I vote aye.
Chairman Cook,
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on, next item on the polled list is number 60 with Department of Education. That's number 60 on the pink list. Same group of presenters. The Kentucky Authority for Educational Television. Love KET, love everything it does. Suffer with a problem myself. I've got Hulu, so I can't pick up KET on Hulu. So I went and bought a regular antenna, hook it up to the TV, and that doesn't pick up channel 46 either for KET. But so I have to stream it on my phone. So I'm interested to hear what we're doing with $1.8 million for KET, and hopefully it has something to do with making it easier for everybody to watch. If you I think you've already identified yourself, so I'll turn it over to you and let you present.
Yes, Karen Worth again, and with me I have Associate Commissioner David Couch, and also we have Tim Bischoff from KET joining us today.
Welcome. I'll let you go ahead.
All right. So this project is the first part of a 3-year project, and it has to do with the replacement of KET's baseline broadcast infrastructure. And it's to bring this equipment up to being prepared and ready for ATSC 3.0, which is the new broadcast standard that was authorized by the FCC a few years ago. That standard is being rolled out in markets across the country. It's a voluntary transition, a market-based transition. It will be a number of years, but this work here in this first 1.8 million is part of a larger 11.5 million over 3 years that will rebuild KET's baseline broadcast infrastructure in the KET Network Center. This equipment, through the General Assembly's investment, was last replaced 15 years ago. So this is equipment that, if you could imagine, that we're running KET's broadcast services, our internal infrastructure, our editing, our master control, all of those systems. 15 years old, some of it's so old, we're not able to do security updates on some of these computers and systems. If you'd imagine having a 15-year-old iPhone and trying to make that operate, sometimes that can really cause a lot of challenges. So this is a project to replace that and also to position it for the next generation in broadcasting.
So this will help me get Renee Shaw on a TV in my living room.
All across the board, absolutely, yes. And one of the great things about ATSC 3.0 is that its broadcast resiliency and the robustness of the signal actually will make it easier to receive over-the-air signals. This is part of many phases in getting us to a full transition to ATSC 3.0. That's a larger and broader transition, but certainly we want to make sure that you're getting KET on every device that you can receive it, including on your TV with an antenna. We have KET also available now on KET.org, so you can watch live through a streaming service as well.
Appreciate that very much. I need to hear that explanation. In rural Kentucky with bad internet, it is very hard to get on KET.org sometime. That's why I was very concerned when I plugged in the regular antenna and couldn't pick it up on that either. So glad to hear that action's being taken on that. Any other questions or comments? If not, I look for a motion to approve number 60 on the pink list.
So moved.
Motion by Patty Minter. Second. Is there a second? Second by Senator Southworth. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Douglas. Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Minter.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Cook.
Aye. Thank you all very much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Next item on the pulled list is with Finance, Office of the Secretary, and it is number 68 on the routine MOA pink list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Thomas. I'm General Counsel of the Finance Administration Cabinet. Also with me is Wendy Smith, Deputy Executive Director of the Housing Programs for Kentucky Housing Corporation, and Benjamin Long, General Counsel of the Public Protection Cabinet.
Great. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I'll get this party started. So my question on this home eviction relief program has to do with the landlords themselves and just some more understanding of this program. And are they taking a lesser rate, or are the landlords being protected in this as well, is my question. So if you could just explain that program, that would be great.
I think Ms. Smith may be in the best position to answer that question.
Yes, happy to do it. Thank you for having us. So the program, of course, these funds haven't begun to flow. That's why this is coming to you all. But the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Program, which I'm presuming you're speaking to, we have been operating since March of this year and have gotten $98 million out to landlords and utilities. And I will say that 99.5% of the funds have gone via direct payments to landlords and utilities. Once in a while, if the landlord chooses not to participate, funds are paid to a tenant. The way that the landlord, I'm not sure what you're talking about for protections, but the landlord is paid directly. We are required to give them the first chance at receiving funds directly, and to make 3 documented outreach attempts to make sure the landlord knows that we are engaged with the tenant and that we would like to pay the landlord directly. We do have a settlement agreement where the landlord and the tenant lay out what they've agreed to, and it lays out how much money is being paid for arrears and for future months' rent. We pay lump sum So we pay arrears and 3 months of future rent to the landlord directly via an electronic payment transfer. And I'll pause there in case I'm not answering the question that you're getting at.
Yeah, I think you answered it in there. My question was, is the landlord getting 100% of the rental value, or is this, and that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, there is no discount required. They're not asked to, we do ask that they forgive late fees or penalties related to non-payment of rent, not any other penalties. If there was a damage penalty or something like that, that's still there. But we do ask that they forgive penalties or late fees, but they don't have to forgive any rent whatsoever.
You answered my question. Senator Yates has follow-up.
Thank you for being here. There's a similar program in Jefferson County. It's actually a separate program, but it's similar situated. And I was going to answer that. So as a landlord, that's part of it is that you agree that any late fees, so sometimes it's 7 or 8 months, but there's no late fees, penalties, and even though if there would have been an increase, that's also waived out too. But one of the benefits is that we promise the landlords, don't give up on the tenants, stay in place. And we're so dependent, especially with the housing crisis throughout Commonwealth of Kentucky, we got to make sure people stay in this business and they continue to do that. Supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion on number 68.
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Meredith, seconded by Representative Mentor. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Douglas. Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Cook.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much for being with us today. Next
Thank you for the time.
Next item on the polled list with Department for Public Health, numbers 48 and 49 on the MOA Amendment 10 list. If the representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Young. I'm the Director of Administration and Financial Management for Public Health. And I have with me Mike Tuggle, Assistant Director of AFM. And I have Bob James, Assistant Director for EPI. And I have Andy Waters, Assistant Director for Maternal and Children Health, our subject matter experts.
Welcome. Senator Southworth has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it probably comes as any surprise what my question is going to be here. We're talking about $45 million that we're increasing to provide additional funds to cover expenses relating to contact tracing. I would like to find out, is this all reimbursements for past contact tracing? And if that's the case, when was the contact tracing being done? Was it the whole fiscal year or the calendar year, or is this a federal budget year, or how's that work?
I'll address that question. This funding is for from November till the end of the fiscal year for the opportunity for the local health departments who are choosing to participate in contact tracing or communicable disease investigation to employ staff during that period between now and the end of the fiscal year. And this is 100% federal funds that is available to them if they choose to participate and earn that money.
So, okay, I'm looking at the dates here. So basically, they could have done some of it already from July 1 and forward, and or they may continue to do it now up until the end of June. That's correct.
That is correct. They have been doing some of this work. It was previously funded in the contract. This is an extension of additional funding that's available to carry them through June the 30th.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to reiterate my point that I've made in the past, and that is, I think it's pretty well televised at this point that Omicron's everywhere, and how you're going to trace that is pretty much impossible. We just all know it's everywhere. How about that? And we don't need to worry about where it is because it's everywhere. And we could save our $45 million from here on out trying to track it down. That is a lot of money that needs to go to a lot of needs. One of which we could talk about education, we could talk about health, we talk about all kinds of things. $45 million we could use for a lot of things, and that's a real problem for me, spending our taxpayer dollars like that.
Any other questions or comments on 48 or 49? Senator Yates.
Just briefly, I don't understand the pandemic or the response. I'm not an expert on it. What I've learned in my private practice, and especially as a public servant, is to depend on experts. And so one of the fear that we do have, not only the rapid spread, but the complete annihilation of our local economy in the event that does happen. So I think it's fiscal responsibility as in addition to the humanity aspect of it that we have to approve the contract. Thank you.
No further comments. I'll entertain a motion.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, sir, Senator Meredith.
To Senator Yates' comment, I'm thinking about filing a bill to eliminate the term expert from our lexicon. I don't think there is such thing. You know, the definition of it is supposedly somebody knows a lot about this, but we found out it depends on which expert you talk about on any given day. And I'm not sure there really is anything. It's I'll put in the same category as I told Senator Douglas about common sense. I think it's there with Sasquatch and unicorns. I'm just not sure there's such a thing as an expert. So, but
Motion to disapprove, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion to disapprove. Is there a second? Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor of disapproving vote aye. All opposed, nay. Clerk, please call the roll. This is for both. This is for 48 and for 49.
Mr. Chairman, can I withdraw that motion and make a motion to disapprove just of number 48?
Yes.
Because number 49, I'm not a fan of a lot of these programs, but it's not for the same reason.
Yes, ma'am. We will separate these. We'll separate these. And the first, we have motion withdrawn, and we now have a motion on the floor to disapprove number 48. Is there a second? Second by Senator Douglas. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Explain my vote briefly.
Yes, sir.
I really cannot believe that at this point in this pandemic that we're going to spend another $45 million on contact tracing. I don't see the return on this investment, so I vote no.
No.
Representative Hart,
No.
Representative Mentor,
Point of order.
Point of order.
I think
Yes, you meant to vote yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I meant to vote yes. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Motion to disapprove. I vote yes. Representative Bowling.
I mean yes.
are we caught up?
Representative Mentor,
I vote no.
Senator Meredith,
I'd like to explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
I vote yes, but folks, this is free money. It's from the federal government, $45 million. But if you don't want it, okay. I vote yes.
Chairman Cook,
Yes, and clerk, will you please let us know what that vote count was? I lost track in there.
Sorry to confuse you.
48 is disapproved. Now, number 49, are there any questions or comments, or is there another motion on number 49? Any motion on number 49? Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on number 49. Clerk, please call the roll. This is to approve.
Senator Southworth,
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Not for the same reasons. I'm just not a fan of most of the programming here that, and so I'm just going to vote no.
Senator Douglas,
You may pass.
pass. Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
No.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
No.
Chairman Cook,
Yes. So it just, contract moves forward. Okay, final item on the agenda is an exemption request. This is number 11 on your agenda. It's from the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. I won't read the whole thing. We have been in this room too long. All right, final item on the agenda is exemption request. It's number 11 on your agenda. I will let you take a second to read it, and then I will entertain a motion on the exemption request.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the exemption request by Co-Chair Meredith. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Douglas, Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
Aye.
Chairman Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, I know everybody's been here a long time, but I would appreciate if I could call attention to a contract that we have already approved, and that's on our personal service contract amendment list, and it's number 41.
Which one, on the tan sheet?
PSC Ivory.
Personal service contract amendment list.
The Ivory. The one that's
The Ivory one.
What number, Chairman Meredith?
41.
41 on the Ivory list. Yes, sir. Floor is yours.
Well, you're gonna think that I'm raising an objection to this contract because it's from California, but no, I'm not. Matter of fact, we approved it back in 2020. My concern is, and I just want to kind of put us on point of this, is you look at this as a $549 million contract now. It goes from July 20 to June 30. So we're 6 months before the end of this this biennial fiscal year, and we're asking for an increase of $200,000. That's a 40% increase in contract. And, the explanation is because we've seen an increase in applicants testing each month. We've seen that can increase over the past, if we've already spent that money, looks to me like this should be a retroactive approval of dollars rather than what it is. But I just don't know that our committee ever has enough money to substantiate a 40% increase in a contract that's 6 months away from termination. And there's just something wrong with the process there. And just want to bring that to your attention. We've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of years about Chapter 45A, and what we operate under. A lot of weaknesses in this program, and I really hope over maybe the next year or 2 years that we can really surgically take a look at 45A and build more transparency into this whole process. It needs it. And I think that will save us time long term, but just want to call that to your attention as an example of we don't always receive the best information. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
Yes, sir. Okay, before adjournment, February 22 meeting is going to be on February the 8th. February the 8th will be our next meeting upon adjournment of both chambers. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. I don't think anybody's going to argue that.
Later, I'm gonna send it to you tomorrow. Not the mindset.
You need to adjourn it.
Is that okay?
Get off. I'm with you.
Or should I send it? I'm just joking. The 45. Hey, when you have a doctor in here voting that way.
Yeah. He's got a great story. He is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording.